I'm from QUT. I work at the Centre for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Studies. And I just want to introduce to you a little bit about what Tea and Buns is all about. And then I'm going to tell you a bit of a plan that I've got for today, but it's a very loose plan. And I'm just going to have a chat with you about journey mapping today. But let's first just introduce Tea and Buns to you. Tea and Buns was a concept that was starting over a year ago now, maybe 2 years ago now, when I was just chatting to so many people about different topics and different research that was occurring. And it was just an idea to get everybody together, anybody that could join us for a cup of tea. And Tea and Buns is a line from the Wind and the Willows book where one of the characters says in there, come and have a cup of tea and let's make the world a better place. And I just thought, oh, isn't that what we do? We're all about trying to make the world a better place in the nonprofit sector and social enterprise. That's what we're all about. So every month on a Thursday morning, we just get together and talk about all sorts of different topics, different leadership challenges, different issues going on within the sector. Some of the topics have been very personal, but some of the topics are very broad, and it's really a chat. But I found it really helpful to have, a couple of people that come and, just talk about issues from their perspective, or if they've done some research. So we kind of switch it up a little bit about how we do it. This one is a little bit different because I'm going to actually be sharing with you something that I've been working on, which is journey mapping over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. So a little bit different maybe from having another speaker come and me interviewing them. But I hope that you're going to get a lot out of today because I know that we've got some amazing people on the line. So that's a little bit about Tea and Buns. Now, let me just see if I can forward my slides, and because I would like to just start by acknowledging the traditional owners of where we're all meeting today, and I know that we're from all over the country, so it's really wonderful. QUT is based in Brisbane, and QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara people as the First Nations owners of the land where QUT stands. And we pay respect to elders past, present and future, and recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, learning and research. I'm actually zooming in from Bundjalung country today because I'm on the Gold Coast. And if you know your country and where you're zooming in from today, please put it in the chat because it's just great to hear all the different countries that we're zooming in from. So very welcome to you all, and if there's any First Nations people here today, welcome to you too. So, all right. So again, just to say that this is a discussion today. It's a community that comes together once a month, and you are all welcome from wherever you are. You are very, very welcome to join in this conversation. And of course, I'd love to be with you personally and actually be able to see you personally. But Zoom is a wonderful thing, isn't it? That we can all get together and feel like we're in the same room together. So the thing is, though, that when we're using this technology, we can't all speak at once. And so just to make sure that there's no noise interference, although I said I'm going to be probably the one that making the noise interference today because my neighbour has decided to do some building work. So I'm hoping that that's not going to be a big problem. But just to keep down noise interference, keep yourself on mute. When you're not talking. We have the chat function if you'd like to use the chat function. But if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand or tell me that you'd like to speak. I'm going to be watching the chat. I've got the chat up on my screen, so I'm kind of looking at that at the same time and seeing if there's anybody wants to speak. And of course, then when I say have a chat, you can unmute yourself or just unmute yourself and tell me that you'd like to say something. So please don't feel that you can't talk. This is not a webinar. I am going to be doing some of the talking, but I don't really want it to be a lecture in any shape or form. In fact, today I really want to learn a lot from you too, because journey mapping is something that I'm just learning about, and I'm just really interested in how we can use it within the nonprofit sector. So today is as much, hopefully I'll be able to share something with you, but I really want to learn from you as well. Okay, so is everybody good to go? Are we ready to get into this conversation? And thank you for sharing your country. That's awesome. That's awesome. Lovely to see everybody. All right, well, as I said, this tea and buns really addresses all sorts of topics, and I've been working on this journey mapping concept for a few months, maybe 6 to 12 months. Many of you who've worked with me or know me know that I'm really big into empathy mapping. I do a lot of human-centered design, concepts. I love human-centered design, which is often considered the suite of tools, I suppose, that journey mapping is part of. So if you've never heard of human-centered design before, that's perfectly fine. This is one of the tools that often comes when we talk about human-centered design though. So go and have a look at human-centered design and do some homework on that. But journey mapping is something that I've been getting more into and more interested in as I've been looking at how we can understand our donors, our customers, our clients. And I've also been, over the last 6 months, working with an organisation who are going to be using it as part of an evaluation of a program that they're doing. And so this has also caused me then to do some research about, well, how is the nonprofit using this tool in evaluation? That's a really interesting concept to me. And so when it came to thinking about what can I talk about or what should we share and have a chat about this month, somebody said, you've got to talk about journey mapping. So it's so great to see you online and all joined me today. And I just really want to kick off with understanding, do you use journey mapping already in your organisation, and how do you use it? So you can have a chat, put it in the chat box so I can see, and everybody can see in the chat box how you're using journey mapping. If you are, if you're not, that's okay, because I want to know that too, so that we know who's using it and who's not, and how are you using it. And I've also put up here in sort of brackets that journey mapping is one of the names, but you may also know the name story mapping or moment mapping even, and there might be other names as well that I'm not aware of. It's not always used journey mapping. So let's have a look. Margaret, using donor journeys. Yes, okay, so using it looking around fundraising and donor journeys, good. User experience, yes, this is very connected to the user experience. So who is the user in your organisation? It could be the donor, it could be the client, it could be your staff even, it could be your volunteers. Has anybody used it? Okay, Carmen says for volunteer recruitment. Yes, okay, so it could be volunteers. So good, so student undertaking a journey map for us with our clients. Okay, so good. So it looks like some of you are using it for clients, some of you are using it for donors, and some for volunteers. And Kim, okay, has helped to develop personas. Okay, I'm going to get Kim to talk a little bit later maybe and share what personas mean, because that's a very interesting term. Claire says, I'm not in an org, but as a student, I'm doing a little bit of journey mapping to understand some assignments. Awesome, great. Okay, and Martin for our students. Okay, great. All right, so it sounds like some of you are using journey mapping and some of you have not used it before. So we're going to keep today really basic because I'm still, as I told you, I'm still learning. But I really wanted to share with you some of the ways that you could use it in your organisation and really get you excited about learning more about journey mapping. So I thought today I will just explain a little bit about the ways that you can use it. And then I found a great case study that I want to share with you about an organisation that did use a journey map and how they use that within their organisation. And then what we'll do is maybe we'll do a little exercise where we'll actually try it out for ourselves, okay? I've got a couple of little examples of where we could actually do it, because it's all very well hearing about it, but you've actually got to actually have a go. All right, so everybody up for that? Do you want to have a little bit of a chat about a case study and then have a go? Is that all right? Because I want you to be really inspired and really excited about this potential tool, okay? So, all right. So, I tried to look into sort of the background to journey mapping, and I can't find exactly, you know, the moment when journey mapping was discovered or decided upon, but I did find, hang on, I'm just going to get my little notes here. I did find that there was a guy called Carlson who, before the 1990s, he was talking about moments of truth. And it was really, again, about the customer experience. So this comes from, you know, the corporate sector where they were looking at customers. And he started talking about moments of truth for the customer. And then in the early 1990s, the words journey mapping started to appear within management, you know, when people were talking again about communications with customers and the customer experience. And then Colin Shaw, a guy called Colin Shaw in 2002 started to use the terminology moment mapping. And again, around customers. This is, again, still very much around the customers and looking at corporate organizations. But then it became very much part of this suite of tools that human-centered design or design thinking uses. And now, if any of you have used or heard of design thinking or human-centered design, you will get to know and see that journey mapping is one of the tools that is used within that broad sort of methodology to understand your customer. But of course, you know, the social sector or our community, our non-profit sector and social enterprises, we said, hang on a minute, we want to understand, you know, the experiences of not just the customer who maybe pays for a service or a product, but we really want to understand the customer experience who are our donors. And this is where somebody said a user. You can use the word user. So who is our clients? Who is our volunteers? Who are our donors, our sponsors, our funders? Maybe we could actually use this as a tool to help us understand other people's experiences. Kelly, I just saw your note. Yes, I'm recording today, everybody, and I will put this up and I will give you the slides, so don't worry about that. So what is this tool then all about? Well, this tool is a very powerful tool, and more people are using it within the nonprofit sector to help us understand the experiences of this user or the person that you want to understand more about. So it might be your customer, client, patient, employee, member, donor, funder, whoever it is that you want to engage or understand more about. And you want to create better experiences for. And I just put that little note at the top of the slide that says 86% of consumers will pay more for a better customer experience. And I'm sure that you agree with that, because I just know that I would certainly enjoy a better customer experience and go to a product or a service that provides me with a good customer experience. Well, I think we can take that concept or that idea and say, well, if we give our donors, our clients, our volunteers better experiences, then they're more likely to engage with us, support us, stay with us, be loyal to us, share our stories with others. You know, it's all about creating that amazing experience, whoever that is for. So what does it help you do then? It helps you empathize, explore, and identify these stakeholders' experiences, needs, and desires. It's a way of really understanding them better. And we're going to talk about personas in a moment, and who this persona, who is this person that you're trying to understand a little bit more about. It also helps you communicate more effectively, because as you stand in the person's shoes and you think about the experience that they're having when they connect with your organization, you're able to communicate with them a lot better when you understand their needs and desires. And what I'm also finding out is that it helps you evaluate. You can actually make journey mapping part of your evaluation suite of tools. And then, of course, it helps you innovate and improve what you do, because when you're standing in someone's shoes, who's your donor or your client, etc., and you're actually thinking about what they're experiencing and thinking about, well, hang on a minute, is that good? Could we do that better? It helps you innovate and become very creative. So lots of great reasons. Does anybody agree with any of that who's used donor mapping? Yes, Kim? Kim, Kim is from Compassion Australia. You stuck your hand up there, Kim, and I would just love to know very quickly. Kim is from Compassion Australia. Many of you may have heard of Compassion, doing some wonderful things all around the world, actually. Kim, do you want to just come off mute and just say, you've used journey mapping, I know. What have you found is the most, important reason why you're using it?
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. Hi, everybody from Newcastle. Journey mapping, we've been using it for about 4 years now, and we initiated it through Donald Miller's story brand. So looking at the story narrative of our donors and our supporters. And from that, we developed kind of the narrative of what are our supporters thinking and feeling, and the different segments of those supporters. They fall into different categories for different reasons. And so looking at that journey of each one, and then that helped us target, okay, who's this supporter and who's the other supporter there, and then we developed personas, what we call personas out of that. So I guess it's helped us to segment who our supporters are and what are they asking, what are they needing, and how can we serve them best.
Yeah, fantastic. So really thinking about the donor in your case, and really thinking about, what do they want to hear? What do they want to know? How can we best serve them? Because we know that donors, we need donor loyalty. We want donors to stay connected with us and continue to keep supporting us and donating to us for the long term. That's very good principle. So great, that's fantastic. Thanks. And again, I will talk about personas a bit more in a moment, because we're using that word and I want everybody to understand what that is. So the other reason, just before we get into actually what a journey map is, I really wanted to just let you know that my background is culture. I look a lot about how people work together and how people work with their staff and their leaders and their donors. And I've really been finding that journey mapping and the whole suite of tools in human-centered design is a real way to build your culture. So if any of you are thinking, wow, I wish my organization was a bit more creative and innovative, this is a really good way to do it, because this is not a tool that you just use by yourself. This is not something that you go away and you just kind of like, it's a little personal exercise. This is not in any shape or form that. It's a tool that you use across the organization. You get everybody involved. Everybody has a perspective on what the user, let's call them the user or customer, what they are thinking and feeling, because we all come from our own perspectives. So when you start using tools like journey mapping, you really start to engage everybody across the organization. And that is why this is so good for building teamwork, for breaking down silos, for empathy, because we start to talk a lot about putting yourself in the person's shoes and trying to understand what they're experiencing. So it really improves people's ability to show empathy. It's really about turning challenges into opportunities, because journey mapping is about looking for gaps and problems and issues that you can address in an innovative way. But it's not kind of going, oh, aren't we terrible at this? It's about saying, wow, there's something that we could improve on. How do we turn that into an opportunity? So for me, culturally, that's a really great thing for organizations to be thinking and talking about. It also helps you to become much more donor and customer centric, because you're thinking about the donor or the customer much more from their perspective and their shoes. So it really helps you to start thinking about your communication, your marketing, your everything you do, even your website, everything that you do, you can start now thinking a little bit more from your user's perspective. It improves employee engagement, definitely, because everybody can get very excited about this. It's an easy tool. It's very simple. And then you can also use it as a change map, or you can use it in planning to actually map out the change that you want to create. So if you notice that donors are coming to your organization, but there's no donate now button on your website, that's a reason for doing something innovative maybe in your organization. Wow, donors are coming to our organization, but they're not seeing how to clearly donate or to sponsor a child or whatever it is that you do. So this is a great tool that can help you map the change process. Okay, have I sold it to you yet before I've even told you what journey mapping is? Yes, okay. So Karen says yes, okay. Maria, absolutely, fantastic. All right, so I hope by now you're all really excited to know what journey mapping is all about and how we actually do that, because there are so many benefits for you learning about journey mapping. But as I said, I wanted to start off with a little bit of a case study just to show you an organisation that has used journey mapping. And this is one of my favourite ones, and you can actually go and read the whole case study at this link here. Smaply is it's actually a software that you can actually do journey mapping online. So you don't have to, okay, but there are organisations and software out there that you can do journey mapping actually online, okay? But they talk about this great case study, and if there's two things I love, it's babies and India. All right, I love India and I love babies, and so I thought that this was a great case study to tell you about. Well, the Kangaroo Care project. Has anybody heard of Kangaroo Care? Does everybody know what Kangaroo Care is? No? Yes? Kangaroo Care is this methodology of putting babies on the mother's skin. And I think it's very apt that it's called Kangaroo Care, given that we're Australians here. And it is a really amazing concept. Well, it's not really amazing. I mean, it's kind of like, well, yes, you know, you should put the baby on the mother's skin. But there's a lot of research about this, and they found that it just has immense benefits to both the child and the mother. But they particularly use it with premature children or babies that are not very well or might have been in ICU. So they're using it a lot with children who are not so well or premature, as I said. And Kangaroo Care is this wonderful, wonderful thing that they try and do with mothers and babies who are maybe small or just need that extra care. So Kangaroo Care is a global thing that people do. But in India, and also just going to get my notes here to tell you, in India they found that people were not doing Kangaroo Care. And so this organisation here called Community Empowerment Lab, they decided to actually do a project to try and get more hospitals in India, mainly rural India actually, to use Kangaroo Care. And in fact, I've got some stats here. If you look at the left, it says in 2016, 200,000 newborns were dying in Uttar Pradesh, which is one of the Indian states. And they found that at least 45% of them could have been prevented by using Kangaroo Care, but the hospitals and the nurses and the doctors didn't really know a lot about it, and they weren't using this practice. And so this organisation called CEL decided to document the patients' and other stakeholders' journeys and design how they would plan to really engage the nurses and the doctors, obviously, that are promoting Kangaroo Care and helping mothers with it. How would they sort of really embed this practice within small to larger hospitals around Uttar Pradesh? So the case study talks about how they went through this process. And they did journey mapping of a number. I think they did around 12 or 24. It was a lot, actually. I've got it somewhere here, but it's quite a lot of personas. So let's now just talk about what a persona is. A persona is Kim, you might jump in with me a little bit there. So if I don't explain this well, a persona is a typical person of the population you're trying to look at and look at their experiences. So a persona might be an Indian mum who is 24 years old. She's having her second child. She lives in a rural village. She's, what we consider, low socioeconomic. She has no English, you know, you would design a persona that typifies the population that you're working with. Kim, have I explained that right? Is that what a persona is?
That's perfect. And it's usually based around some research that you've probably dug deep into to develop what those different personas are. For our supporters, we might have proactive parent Pete and Penny, who represent the parents who want to sponsor a child so that their kids grow up knowing social justice issues and the heart for children living in poverty. So proactive parent Pete and Penny is one of our personas. That's a generalization of part of our research.
Yeah. And what is the reason why you give your persona a name? Like you've given her name Penny, or, you know, like, and Claire has just said in the chat here, yes, give her a name.
Yeah.
Why do we give our personas names?
It helps to visualize the human element of their experience. And also when you're talking about it in your organization, that you're not just talking about persona 1 or persona A and B, you know, it gives them a heart, and it allows you to dig deeper into what can we offer that persona, and how can we enhance that experience for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I like that. It humanizes the person that you're talking about, but you can't, and it is stereotyping, but in a really positive way, because you need to understand this group that you're trying to work with or you're trying to engage. So what happened with this group, CEL, is that they did a number of personas, and I think you're sharing that too, Kim, that you could do a number of personas. They did mothers, government officials, nurses, midwives, doctors, community health workers, husbands, mothers and fathers-in-law. Those were all the people that they realised that had a stake in whether this mother used kangaroo care and how it might benefit her. So it was really important to understand those people and what they were thinking and what they were feeling at any point when the mother was pregnant, when the mother, you know, went into labor, when the child was born, what was happening in hospital, or what was happening at home when they were sent home. So they did all of these empathy, their empathy map is part of that to get that persona together. And then they did journey maps for all of them. And basically, I'm not going to go into the case study too much because I said you can go and read it all, but I did want to just sort of tell you what the result was of doing this journey mapping, which was looking at these personas and saying, what are they thinking and feeling and experiencing at any part of the journey, from pregnancy right through to, you know, the child being, not needing kangaroo care anymore. So what they found was that empathy was critical. They really needed to improve the way that the nurses were listening and understanding the mothers. They really needed the doctors to think about the nurses and have empathy with the nurses. They needed everyone to really think about how others were feeling and thinking. And so they used empathy a lot in that. They also found that nurses played the most crucial role in ensuring the successful failure of the kangaroo care in the health facilities that they were working with. So basically this led to a bit of an innovation in this area, and they set up a team of nurse mentors because they realised that nurses who were teaching others about kangaroo care was more likely to have some longevity in this change process. And they also set up what they called kangaroo care lounges. And because they realized that this culture, they were working in the Indian culture as well. They had to consider the culture, and they really needed the mothers to be in this safe and relaxing place. Because in India, as you know, there's lots going on all the time, and there's lots of people around, and it doesn't feel very safe all the time. So they set up these lounges and they put on music, I believe, and they made this a really safe and relaxing place for mothers to engage with this practice of kangaroo care. And they did some evaluation on it and found that the actual practice of this kangaroo care helped to reduce neonatal mortality by 54% across 300 villages just by doing this. So isn't that awesome? Like, I just think that is such a wonderful example of how you can take the concept of empathy, personas and journey mapping and use them to really innovate and change what I believe is a critical practice in a place like India. But of course, that's India, and we can do that exactly the same here in many different ways as well. Any questions about that before I scoot on? Did you like that case study, and did it kind of really show you how you can use journaling before we actually have a go ourselves? Just looking at the chat here, Teen Challenge, is that Helen? Also helps you personalize communications. Yes, okay, so you're talking about persona, and again, if you create these personas, you can personalize the communication to them. Yes, definitely. All right. So everybody with me? Give me a little thumbs up if you can. Tell me, great, you're with me. All right. So, yes, you really, so Maria has just put, interesting to hear how many different groups they explored. And you're absolutely right. You do need to think about everybody, all of your stakeholders that are involved. And Kim, I wonder, your persona Penny, who are the people that influence Penny, or that you need to understand if she's your donor? Is there someone in her world that you've also had to think about or create a persona for?
Yeah, they, well, Pete and Penny, so they were a couple. And so we're looking at the family unit as well, but often it's Penny who's the one who's drawn with emotion and wanting to sponsor, but she often has to go back to Pete and say, hey, I'd like to sponsor another child. They might already have 4 on the fridge. So yeah, so it's that family dynamic as well that you consider when you're looking at the different personas.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is why it's important not to just think about your donor or your client, but to think about everybody else within their world and who influences who and the different experiences, because again, this is bringing up the idea of men. You know, men are typically not very good at going and approaching services themselves. But if you want men to be engaged with your organization, you might need to have to actually think about the ladies in their life and the family unit and who's influencing that man, and actually start to think about their experiences and how they encourage men to participate in your service. Yeah, that's great. Good. All right. So that was the case. Oh my goodness, we are going so fast here. I hope it's getting you excited. All right, so I wanted to just give you a little chance to have a go at this, and I've got 2 examples, and this is very simplistic. I am not trying to take this to any complex level at all for you, because I know some of you have never done this before, or you're just learning about this. So please forgive me if this is really simple for you, but I wanted to just break it down. I do believe in breaking complexity down to simplicity, and this is just a little example of how you would actually do a journey mapping. So first of all, you can see this lovely young mum here and her 2 kids. And I'd like you to just give her a name, please. In the chat, give her a name. What is her name? Tell me her name, or write this down for yourself. Give her a name. Monica. Yeah, she does look like a Monica. Sarah, Maria, Cindy. Yeah. Okay, Julie. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, she's got beautiful names. All right. Well, I want you to write down on your piece of paper, you know, what you would call her. And she is a young mum. Now, we're just playing here and just using this as a scenario, okay? And I want you to imagine that Maria, Marcia, Jane, whoever you've called her, she is your next client or customer of your organization, not your donor. I'm going to do donors in a moment, all right? This is beneficiary. This is someone who is coming and actually getting a service from you. Now, I want you to just write down a couple of things about Marcia. I want you to write down a couple of, now you can see in the photo she's got 2 little kids, but I also want you to just write down, you know, what's her level of income? Is she employed? Is she not employed? How long has she been unemployed? Just write down a few little things about her and her world. What do you think in terms of her mental health, her physical health? Does she go to church? Is she part of a group? Does she go to a ladies group? Does she Does she do things at the weekend? Does she drive her kids around to sports? What does she do? Just try and think a little bit about her life. Okay, and I would love to see what you're coming up with in the chat. What we're doing here is we're just creating a persona of a typical beneficiary or client that might come to your organization. I might pick on some people. And Jill, I can see you looking very thoughtfully. Okay, so Shirley says she's just lost her job. She's looking for funds to help her family, feeling anxious and unsure, loss of confidence, feeling trapped, hasn't told her family yet as she feels shame. Awesome. Okay, Shirley is sort of building this persona and really trying to understand this young mum. And that's what you're doing, Shirley, is you're empathizing with Zoe. I'll call Zoe, all right, which is the last name put up there. You are empathizing with Zoe and actually giving her that human factor, as Kim said. You're giving her, you know, the real life tangent kind of experiences of who she is and where she lives. Oh, you might want to put, where does she live? What's her cultural background? You know, has she been, you know, separated from her husband or her partner? Is she young? How old is she? You can put all things like that. Margaret has said Cindy works full-time and has 2 children and a husband. She's studying part-time and stresses a lot about all her aspects of life and her responsibilities. Fantastic. So Margaret's come up with a different persona based on what Margaret does. Okay, and this is great. So this is all about really trying to understand and giving Zoe, or Cindy, an understanding of who she is. Okay. Has everybody done that? Does everybody understand that first part, what you need to do? Yes? Suzanne, give me a thumbs up. Yes, got it. Mark, nice to see you, Mark. Got that? Leslie, yes? All right. So this is the first thing that you do is you create this persona. And as Kim alluded to earlier, you don't always just do that by yourself and in 2 minutes. I mean, the concept is that you go and do a bit of research and you actually think about your beneficiaries and the people that you work with and try and think about, well, typically what's their age? Typically, what are they thinking and feeling and what are they doing even before they engage with our organization? Fantastic. I can see some more personas coming up there. So once you've created your persona, this is where you start the journey mapping. And there are many different ways of doing this, but I have just, and I like this way, is that you put across the top of your paper, whatever you're writing your notes down now, awareness, consideration, decision, and loyalty. Those are the kind of areas that we're going to look at as Zoe, we'll call her Zoe, as she walks through this journey. Okay. So we'll start with awareness. Now in the awareness button, I want you to write down under the persona that you've just done, how does Zoe hear about you? How does she learn about your organization or your service? If she's a volunteer, where does she hear about you from? If she is a young mum needing, you know, mental health support, where does she hear about you from? What is that first, what we call touch point? What is the first thing or the first place where she hears about your organization? Now, the question, you know, is simple when you just say, how did I hear about you? But of course, we're going to go, when you do journey mapping, you go into this quite in depth. You really want to know where Zoe heard about you from and what she was thinking and feeling and doing as a result of learning about you. Now, there are different ways of doing this research. You can do interviews. So you can choose 10 of your typical beneficiaries and go and interview them and say, how did you hear about us? What did you think when you heard our name? What did you feel when you saw, you know, we offer these services? You can go and ask people in your organization just as a part of your research, okay? You might want to do some observations. Kim, I don't know if you've ever done this, but actually just watched a potential donor come to your website, and you could probably look at the analytics as well and go, what pages do they land on? Where do they spend their time? What questions do they ask when they come to the website? Is that what you do, Kim?
Yeah, we definitely take into consideration our Google Analytics and all that stuff from the digital side, but also when we used to have physical conferences, we'd watch people and what questions are they asking and why are they looking to sponsor and what are the draw cards, you know, those kind
and
of.
what are their objections? I'm sure that you have looked at that closely. You know, why are they saying they won't sponsor a child?
Exactly. And some would be like, oh, I want to sponsor a child who's the same age as my son so that they can grow up together. And it's like, oh, there's proactive parent, Pete and Penny. Okay, what's she asking for?
And that would lead you then to maybe talk about the child that you want sponsored and say, this is their birthday or this is their age and this is a little bit about the sponsor child, so that the potential parent can then say, oh yes, that's, you know, that connects with me. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's creating those.
Yeah, fantastic. So I've also put there focus groups. You can do lots of different ways of looking at how Zoe is interacting with you from a real just awareness perspective, and what are some of the questions that she's asking. Does that make sense, everybody? That first bit? Okay, so you would really, again, ask different people throughout your organization, because you'd have to go to your marketing department, you'd have to go to your recruitment, your HR department, you might have to go across the organization and ask for their perspectives and say, how are people connecting with you and gaining awareness of our organization? Great, loving the chat, you're putting some examples. Okay. So after Zoe has become aware of you, now she has to actually consider engaging with your service. And this is a question that we ask ourselves, which what would make me think about accessing your service, or what would make Zoe access your service? And this is where you really do empathy mapping. And again, if you've never used empathy mapping, write that down and go and do some homework on what empathy mapping is. But this is really where you would consider Zoe's thoughts and feelings. Does she feel afraid? Does she feel embarrassed? Does she feel like it's all too hard because she's got to take 10 buses to the other side of town to access your service? Does she feel embarrassed because she's got two, you know, kids with her and think, oh no, they're not going to sit still? You know, what is she thinking and feeling when she is thinking about accessing your service? And again, very important for employees and volunteers when you're doing this. You know, when you're doing personas around volunteers and employees. So really what leads you and leads her to access your service? Have a go, write down now. What is it? What do you think makes your persona access your service, and what are her thoughts or feelings? And I did pick a female, but of course you might be working with all sorts of different people. So. And then the next one is decision. And I'm going to scoot a little bit faster here because I've just noted the time. All right. So decision section is all about what happens when Zoe actually engages. So what happens then once she actually does knock on the door, make the phone call, book an appointment, sponsor a child? You know, what is it then that she's actually doing once she's engaged? And the loyalty part is what happens after that, okay? What happens after she's actually become a client or a customer of yours? And this question is very critical because you're mapping this journey, you're mapping what Zoe is thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. And you've got to ask yourself, what can I do today to improve her experience? I put my, but her experience to achieve outcomes. So what is it that you can do? And this is the powerful part of journey mapping, because this is where you start to become really creative and innovative to say, you know what, when she knocks on the door, we've got nowhere safe and private for her to, you know, tell us what's going on. Or this is where, you know, X, Y, Z. This is where you really identify the gaps or the areas where you can improve Zoe's experience, the outcomes that you're wanting to achieve for Zoe, physical health, or you know, whatever it is that you do for Zoe or with Zoe. you've really got to say, now we know a lot about her, how she's experiencing this whole journey. What can we do to improve that experience? Has anybody got an idea? Has anybody gone, ting? Just even talking about that makes me feel like, yeah, we could do that. Anybody want to share? Julie, do you use it at all? Hannah, come on, tell me. Am I getting your motivation up? Am I making this clear about how you could use it? Yes? You need to ask myself or Kim. I'm sure Kim will ask a question if any of you have got a question about this. Thinking it through. Great. All right. I wanted to quickly just show you another one which I think that many of you will be experiencing. Oh no, first of all, before that, I just wanted to really quickly touch on the importance of empathy. Empathy is a critical principle of journey mapping. And if you are going to do this at all, you have to teach people about empathy. Now, I really feel terrible about saying teach people about empathy because we work in the sector and I'm sure we all do have empathy. But in my experience, sometimes we forget actually how to have true empathy, which is getting rid of your own biases, really putting yourself in the shoes of the user or the customer. And I've just put it here, and I'd love, Kim, when I've finished this, I'd love your thoughts on this. The importance of empathy is because we need to really, really understand from their perspective. If it's all coming from us, you know, we think we're doing everything wonderful. But, you know, when we put ourselves in their shoes, we have to be really open to the fact that actually we could improve what we do and we could get better outcomes and we could get better engagement and we could do our services better. And I think that we have to be open to the fact that we could do better. We could give better experiences. Kim, what's your ideas or insights on the importance of empathy?
Yeah, empathy plays a huge part in our communications, mostly from the field. So the countries, we work in 26 countries, developing countries around the world. And in the storytelling of our marketing or any other kind of storytelling, we really need to empathize with the children we represent and their families. So understanding that we're not the white saviors and how all of that can work from their angle is actually beneficial to our supporters here in Australia as much as it would be to them. So communicating those humanitarian points and those touch points in between. Now we have COVID, everybody's experiencing COVID, but so we have an empathy point where we can connect with the field. But often understanding the heart of a mother who's living in poverty, who can't feed her will make our understanding of our supporters connect better as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So empathy is a very critical part, and you do really have to teach people how to put your own biases aside. You have to address assumptions, because we make assumptions when we design our services, when we design our website, when we design our, you know, structure and what we do. We're always making assumptions. That's our theory of change. But we really have to put that aside when we're doing journey mapping, because you might come up with these amazing aha moments that go, wow, I never realized that, because when I was just looking at it from my own perspective, I thought that was, you know, wonderful. But when I actually see it from the eyes of a young mum or a donor or a volunteer, it means things look very differently. All right, so I did have another one, and we don't have time to go right through this, but I just wanted, I know that all of you or many of you use donors or funders for your organizations, and we can equally use journey mapping for donors as well as customers and beneficiaries. So this again would be very similar, and that's me. So I wanted you to imagine that I was your next potential donor. What would you need to know about me? What would you need to think about and put yourselves in my shoes to understand whether I could potentially become your next donor? And again, you would go through a similar form of exercise. You would, how would I hear about you? You know, what would make me think about donating to you? What would, you know, get my, what facts or emotions would I need to go, yes, I want to donate to your organization? What happens when I make the donation? So do I get an acknowledgement? Do I get a thank you? Do I get a picture? What is it and who is it that interacts with me? And what is that experience like? And then what happens after that? So what would you do to make me a loyal donor, someone who just loves your organization and now shares your Facebook post, now, you know, tells people that I'm actually a compassion sponsor child, which I am, Kim. So, you know, what does it take for you to increase the experiences of your donors and funders with your organization? Does that make sense, everybody, of how you can use it within a donor setting as well? Has anybody got any thoughts? I can see some more chat, which is great, but I just don't want to miss any questions or any real thoughts about this. Is everybody getting excited about this tool that you might be able to use? No questions. Oh, sound like you've got it and you're just waiting to get offline so you can go and do some more research and start. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to finish with just a couple of thoughts then. We talk in this methodology about moments of truth. And I put this little picture here because I found it and I thought, yeah, you know, journey mapping is all about story, which is why some people actually call it story mapping. It's all about this beginning, middle and end, and giving your persona this story of both what might be happening in reality, but also what you would like to happen. How would you want people to think and feel when they see your organization? How do you want people to think and feel when they actually engage with your organization and donate or become a volunteer? And then what happens throughout that journey? What does that ending look like as well, even? So really, this is about developing this inquiry and design mindset. It's about helping everyone in your organization. Everyone can do this, all right? Whoever they are, whether they're frontline service delivery staff, whether they're managers, whether they're leaders, whether they're in the accounts or HR and whatever they're doing throughout your organization, they can learn the concept of journey mapping and you can work together. And as I said, ultimately, within your organization where you're thinking a lot about your customer experience. And you don't have to just do it on paper. You can draw, use art, people use Lego, you can role play it. There are so many ways. And in fact, I'm on the Social Enterprise World Forum at the moment that's this week. And I'm seeing how people within social enterprise are using video and film and they're doing storytelling around pictures and things like that as well. So there are so many creative ways that you can do journey mapping. And I just wanted to really explain that. Now, there are lots of ways that you can go and learn more about this. And I just wanted to pick up on a question that I just saw. Claire said, I've used micro journey mapping, but just wondered what other online programs. Oh, good. Well, there you go. Here's my slide. All right. So Claire, there are lots of ways that you can go and learn about journey mapping more. IDEO is definitely a fantastic place to go and check out. They talk a lot about journey mapping, but you will see that it's part of this suite of tools under the banner of human-centered design or design thinking. There's lots of books that include journey mapping as part of the design process. And I think if you Google, you'll see that there are lots of different ways. But I think that you don't want to overwhelm yourself and you don't want to think it's any more complex than you want to make it, all right? Don't feel that you have to be a big organization or you have to have designers like Kim on your team. You don't. You can do it yourself and learn yourself. There are lots of consultants as well. And I think, Kim, you said that you have used consultants in the past that are very expert at this and will come and help you learn about it. But you know, it is nothing that you can't learn and you can't start exploring with your team. And I really, Bright Pilots, yes. So Bright Pilots is a fantastic consultancy where they have great people to help you with human-centered design. In Brisbane, there are a number of human-centered design people that can help you with journey mapping. If you go on LinkedIn and you just Google anybody that does human-centered design or journey mapping, you'll find people in your local area that do this, okay? So never feel that you're on your own, but don't make it any more complicated you know, then you have to. It's a very simple process to get started. Any other questions before we finish up? Has that been okay? Was that a good overview for you? Has that, you know, answered some of your questions and made you think about how you might be able to use it in your organization? Okay, getting a couple of thumbs up. Excellent. Okay. Well, I hope it was. And, you know, tea and buns, and I have done a lot of the talking today, I realise that, but I really just wanted to inspire you to go and learn a bit more about journey mapping and human-centered design. But we can do more on that if you like. If you email me and say, I want to learn more about that, or should we do a session on empathy mapping or something, you know, please email me and tell me what you'd like another conversation. It'll either be me or someone else, or I'll get someone like Kim to come and share their experiences. We've also got other free webinars out. We've just released the next stats around giving, and we're going to be doing some free webinars to tell you the state of giving in Australia at the moment. And also we've got a great webinar coming up around how non-profits and government can work better together. So please check out the website. ACPNS is here for you. We want to help you and support you. And if there's any other way that we can help you, please let me know and give me an email. So Kim, do you want to just round up with what's your big takeaway tip for everybody here who's going to go off now and do some research on journey mapping? What's your big takeaway for them? What would you recommend?
That's a big question, Ruth, to end with. I think just listen, lean into the listening of your staff, of your connecting points into the communities and to your donors and your customers. And we like to call them neighbours. And if you start to think of them as your neighbour, then you'll start to empathise even more, and it'll make your journey mapping a lot easier.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today and sharing some insights. Thank you to everybody. I will put this recording up. So if you have anyone else that wasn't able to make it today, but you'd like to share it with them, we'll put it up in the blog in due course. Goodbye, everybody. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next month.